welcome to another episode of Confidence According to. I am so excited about today's guest because I've just spent an entire day with Robertson. She's all the way from Scotland, and today she delivered the most inspiring, most amazing, most practical. It was just everything under the sun. It is the Superstar Speaker, conference, seminar.
Yes, seminar.
There we go, seminar. We're here at the beautiful President Hotel in Bantry Bay, and it's just been the most epic way to spend a day, being inspired by a fellow confidence crusader who is doing her bit to help elevate women's confidence around the world. And so thank you so much for coming and chatting to us after a long day. I'm sure you must be super exhausted. I'm really grateful that you're able to kind of muster more energy to continue the conversation.
It is absolutely my pleasure, Abigail, and thank you so much for attending today. I love speaking, love working with women, so I'm full of beans and energized and really happy to be here.
Awesome. And so how did you get started as a professional speaker?
So I got started as a professional speaker quite by accident. I was kicked out of school at 15 years old and was terrified of my mum's reaction when I told her I was no longer employed as a schoolgirl. So I looked for a job on the Job Centre website in the UK, and I had this other strange skill set because I was very interested in spirituality and angels and dream interpretation, and at that point all I wanted to do was nosy into people's lives and do readings for them and talk about their dreams and angels and what made them tick. So I went home, applied for this job that was completely outrageous, the odds of them looking for angel card readers and dream interpreters, and got hired by this woman at 15 years old. She hired me right there and then on the spot. So I began speaking immediately, straight out of school. At sort of 15, 16 years old, I was speaking to audiences of hundreds of women, and I was self-employed at that time within the company. She was sort of my agent. She would set up opportunities for me to speak and then do one-to-one sessions. And I got bitten by the speaking bug early. So from then till now, I've been mostly following my career as a speaker.
Wow. Was it, before then, was like professional speaking ever on your radar? Was it ever a childhood, girl dream of yours?
Yeah, so first of all, my mum says I started talking at 6 months old and then never shut up. That's fairly accurate.
Okay.
And I loved drama and performance at school. I was always the lead in the play, and I remember at school I won an award for memorising all of my lines in the play when I was like 11 years old or something. So definitely like performance, drama, acting, telling stories, all of that is definitely a big part of my personality and my early life as well.
Now, when I've asked women, because women's confidence is a shared passion of ours.
Yes.
And when I've asked them what their biggest confidence challenges are, professional speaking or speaking to an audience or speaking to a camera is either number one or number two.
It's up there.
It is really up there. And I think it's also been said that, it's one of the biggest fears in humanity in general is speaking to an audience. And do you think that, is there a difference from your experience in terms of how women approach professional speaking versus men, and are women more prone to, doubting their ability to be a professional speaker? Do you have any, insights into that?
I think that there's a lot of variable factors, and especially in what you've said, you've raised a lot of really excellent points. There is definitely a sort of genetic, historical, evolutionary aspect to our minds, all of our brains, men and women, called the limbic system in the brain, which is very ancient, and that is where our ancient urges are. And one of our urges is to be safe and to be in community. And so when we become speakers, we single ourselves out. And in prehistory, ancient history, that would have almost certainly meant death, because we don't have the sharpest talons, we don't have any natural armour, we don't have any toxin or poison. What we had was each other. And so by taking your place as a speaker, you single yourself out, you make yourself a target, and in a way that completely goes against this need for community that we had to survive. Add on the fact that if you're a woman, your role as a nurturer, usually the centre of the family, the glue of the family, somebody who raises children and puts those children before herself, traditionally speaking, the way that our cultures have developed, can often lead women to have a bit more of a journey to becoming public speakers, like really, really great speakers, often than men. There's also a lot of societal and cultural things to take into consideration, although ultimately when a woman gets on the stage and when she finds her confidence, because of the very same qualities that make her a great mother, a great sister, a great friend, a great nurturer, those are the qualities that also make her a great speaker, because she can tell impassioned and emotive stories, because she's deeply connected to that part of herself in a way that most men aren't. But of course that's a generalization.
Yeah, absolutely. And today you really kind of drummed home the point of the importance of those stories.
Sure.
And I think many women, as you did say to us in the session today, we think that we don't have enough of a story to tell, that like, well, who am I to share my story? So how is it that you kind of find the story in each woman, and does every woman have a story to tell? Like, could any woman be a professional speaker, or is it just those who are entrepreneurial or, have overcome some huge trauma, or
Sure.
Is it open to everybody?
Yeah, well, I think that what is very key to speaking, especially for women, is that they have a burning desire to do it. If you do not have a burning desire to speak, it's going to feel like hell to be invited to speak or to have to speak. It's going to be the worst thing ever. But some people have that burning desire to talk, to share, to get into vocal and verbal storytelling and educating. And if you have that burning desire, then I think that any woman can be a speaker, and that every woman's story is important. And one of the things I talked about today is that what's personal to one is universal to all. And it is the things that women share in common. No matter where I go in the world, women have the same concerns: their love life and their health and their family, and being stable and secure, and having freedom and having spiritual depth to themselves, and having some miracles in their life, or some times of excitement and enthusiasm. The things that they fear, the things that sadden them, that make them angry or depressed, they don't really change across the globe, no matter what kind of woman you're talking to. So the things that we have in common are really powerful to share in stories, but each woman's unique way of sharing that universal theme has its own extraordinary value in it, its own unique value in it. So yes, I believe that talking about the most common things in our life that's shared between us all can be extremely valuable. So if a woman has a desire to speak, I will find the story in her. And for me, it's very intuitive. When I'm working with my clients, I'm doing very little talking and a lot of listening, and she will say something in particular or talk about a certain aspect of her life, and some change will come over her, some different feeling, different spark, different energy, and I know that there's something in that wants to be told by her. And so usually we start at whatever that thing is with her story, and it's different for every woman.
And what's your burning desire to, the reason why you do what you do?
Well, I really love to talk, and I really love to be the centre of attention. I'm going to own that. I'm not going to lie. You've got your drama queen, celebrity archetype drama queen right here. So definitely it fulfills something personal within me to perform. But on a deeper level, I am really passionate about having women make the most of themselves, and having women take responsibility for creating opportunity in their life, and having women understand that their stories, their lives are valuable, their skills are valuable, that they have an immense contribution to make to this world. I was brought up by a single mum, and I had one sister, so it was an all-female household, and I've definitely grown and learned throughout the years of some of the benefits of having women close by, but also some of the limitations that we struggle with and that we experience. And I just feel that the new era that we want to move into globally, an era where we need leaders that are a bit more compassionate, a bit more loving, a bit more empathic and empathetic with those around them. It's going to be women that lead the charge with that, only because it comes more naturally to most of us. But in order for that to happen, women need to be empowered with a certain skill set that's usually left to the men, the alpha, the dominant. I describe it as the bravado aspect. And so I'm really passionate about bringing that masculine and feminine together for the good of all, really.
I really love that part, and I made copious notes about that. And it's not about, like you said, it's not about bashing men and making them the baddie, and that it's about bringing the balance back.
Sure.
We're all human at the end of the day. We're just different flavors of human, and it's about reigniting the balance.
Yes,
that is
exactly.
awesome. I love that. And you alluded to it. You mentioned a little bit about it, how you dabbled in this more esoteric field before you actually, it was the introduction for you into the professional speaking field. How much of that do you still use in this current brand positioning, being the professional speaker, coaching people on professional speaking? How much of the worlds overlap?
Oh, hugely.
Oh, really?
Hugely. For one, I mean, my interest in esoteric matters was really an interest in people and their stories and what makes them tick. I have a degree in philosophy, and I studied philosophy of mind and consciousness specifically. I wrote my dissertation on whether or not we have free will. So I've always been interested in the mysteries of life, and I think the mysteries of what it means to be human and what's right at the edge of human consciousness and what the human mind and spirit can do are very closely connected to people's most interesting stories. The stories that I was interested in previously were the stories of the dead, so people who'd passed, and trying to talk about whether or not life after death is such a thing, and do those entities, that consciousness continue. I was interested in the stories that our dreams were trying to tell us, by the symbolism of what we dream. I was interested in the stories of what came up in angel cards and tarot cards about a person's inner life. And so for me, it's been a very natural fit to still be interested in the stories of people, but just to hear them from their own mouth and their own lips and how things sound to them. And also very much the way I coach people and guide people to find their own kind of speaker superstar and their inner speaker. It definitely is very intuitive, the kinds of questions that I ask and the direction I want to take people in the coaching, and where we're going to start to find a person's core message. That whole journey is just a very intuitive to and fro of that person's inner landscape, and I learned that through the many, many years that I talked about spirituality and the very sensitive perception to other people's emotions and feelings and mental states that I developed over that time.
Yeah.
And I care a lot in spirituality, and is very connected to that sense of us being at one and as one and all connected, and that's definitely withstood.
And I think that's it, the connection.
Yes.
Like all parts of you, all aspects of you are connected, and however that translates in, how you present yourself to the world, but also how you connect with other people, and that's exactly what you're doing when you're doing the professional speaking, when you're speaking to an audience.
Yes.
That's amazing. And so in terms of, if somebody was wanting to work with you, what's the kind of ways in which they can work with you?
So I specialise mostly in helping women, as I'm sure you've gathered from this chat. Mostly women, and mostly it's entrepreneurs who are trying to grow their businesses, who want to speak to grow their businesses, who want to speak to grow their brand and to grow their impact, to tell their story, to tell their brand story. And so I work with a variety of different capacities and ways within that. Sometimes I'm in corporate, helping corporations to grow their businesses and expand their story and tell their story. But most of the time it's women that are working with me one-to-one as their coach. And the reason that is because I really love to go on the journey with a woman one-to-one. For me, it's a lot more about her inner journey from becoming the person that she was to the person she is now, to the person, the speaker, that woman on stage that she sees herself as. Because when a woman is aspiring to be a speaker, actually what's going on underneath is she's often aspiring to be something that she believes a speaker is about, whether it's more confident, more powerful, more impactful, more wealthy, more heard. And it's really taken her on the inner journey to becoming that woman and embodying that and owning that for herself that I'm really interested in. And the speaking is almost like just the eventual manifestation of that journey. So it lends itself very well to one-to-one work and my group program Speaker Superstar as well, where I take women on that journey together. So transformational coaching mixed with some sort of business strategy, mixed with this learning about our own stories, accepting our own stories, and learning how best to formulate our own stories in a way that will serve other people. Combination of all of those things and my capacity as a speaking coach.
Yeah, it's so inspiring, and you've mentioned brand a number of times, and that's something that I'm also just so excited about, because really with through photography I help women make their brands come alive visually, and
Yes.
you're helping them dig deep into discovering what their story is that then ties into the brand and the message that they're putting out there. And in terms of where would a woman, like an entrepreneur, who is your target audience and my target audience, where would they start if they're wanting to, it's day one and they've quit their job or they've left the corporate world and they're excited to start sharing their gifts? Where do they start with establishing themselves as the expert, in their industry, or building their brand from day one? What would you say?
Sure. Well, it's really important to start with the end in mind. And the end ultimately is whatever you want your client/audience member to do. And so my advice, especially for those who are just starting out, is to get extremely intimate with who your ideal client is. And a hint is your ideal client is often you 3 years ago or you 5 years ago.
That's so good.
So yeah, you're a little further down the road that someone wants to be on, and you can reach back and help them. Not always, but a lot of the time that's the case. And so starting with getting very intimate about what your ideal client's dreams are, what their desires are, what they really want, what they're Googling because they don't know the answer to, what's keeping them awake at night, and really speaking to as many of your ideal clients/audience members as possible. Because one thing that I see especially new speakers and new entrepreneurs struggle with is trying to come up with content completely on their own, trying to magically, produce it from the inside out, and that rarely works. What is ideal is to take the best of you and what you love to talk about and what you're passionate about, and then combine that with what your client most needs from you, and that's where the sweet spot of success in your business and your speaking career is. And so if you just go with what is in your head or what's within you, and you don't take the time to ask your ideal audience or your ideal clients what they need and what they want in the form of market research, then you really only have half the story. My first 5 figures in my business that I made in a single day was because I did market research questions, and I had not any intention of signing anyone as a client, but because the questions were so in depth and I was really curious and really cared, they said at the end of the calls, well, so how can I work with you? And that was really the start of it for me in terms of higher ticket pricing. So when you're curious about people and you find out what makes them tick, and you use the language that they use about themselves to speak to them in your copy and your talks and your marketing, that's really where I would start with that. And much success has come for me personally just from using that one particular strategy. Do not underestimate your market research.
So then take us back to the start of your journey. And so you mentioned that you were kind of just thrown into it. And were you a confident speaker from the start? You said you were always a speaker, always on the drama and always chatting, and your mom couldn't get you to shut up. But when you were actually there in front of that audience for the very first time, and you explained in the session today that it was kind of unprepared and completely, thrown at you on that particular day, were you confident in that moment? And how has your confidence in your delivery and your speaking journey gotten you to where you are now?
Okay, I know I was not confident in that moment. I wanted to die. I wanted the ground to swallow me up. I was absolutely terrified. But I was so terrified that I knew I just had to lean into it, because the thing about terror is it only stays as strong as it is if you continue to avoid it, if you pull back from it, if you recede, it proceeds. It comes closer, more towards you, and gets more aggressive and gets bigger the more you pull back from it. So at 16 years old, when I had that opportunity to speak to my first audience of 100 people, completely unprepared, I just felt that I had no choice. And it was that feeling of having no choice, that feeling of I need to get on the other side of this terror right now, and the only way to do it is just to go straight through it, that carried me through. I was completely unprepared. I didn't even know until that day that I was going to be speaking. I was fresh out of school, but I just decided I'm going to serve these people the best I can. I have something that I want to talk about that I'm really interested in and passionate about. I hope that they're going to feel the same way about it, and that was really where I started and how I started. And I still have that same philosophy today. I still think, what would best serve them? I find this really interesting, I hope they will as well. Or this made me feel really curious or excited, let me show it to my audience and see how they react to it. And I've always found that keeping your heart and your head in service instead of on self is how to move through and work through any sort of fear of speaking. Focus on that one person in the audience, because there's always one when you speak that's there for you that day, one whose life will be changed by what you have to say. And if you get intimate with that person and you know that there's going to be one of them in every audience, and you focus on that person rather than focusing on yourself, it changes everything when you realise and can sort of internalise that you're there to serve and not get stuck in your own head. That is what happened to me the first night, and it worked, you know, when I was 16, and so I've just employed that strategy repeatedly, and it's really what's got me to where I am today.
Well, and I mean, you appear like an amazingly confident woman. You know, I photographed you on Monday, and you said you absolutely love being photographed, which 9 out of my 10 clients, you know, they hate being photographed. So you're an anomaly from my perspective. Is there anything that you're not confident in?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm not confident in anything new that I try. Like in my business, a lot of the time I have to experiment with something new, going to new places, doing new things, putting new aspects in my talk. I never ever feel confident about. But what I am confident in is that I will know the answer on the other side, and I'm only going to know the answer if I do it. So even though I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, or this is taking a risk, or I haven't tried it this way before, just in the doing of it, I know that the confidence will be right on the other side of it. Also, it's been a long journey about managing my money, managing finances. Being 16 and starting my business, I had not a clue about managing money or numbers. So learning about accountancy and bookkeeping and how to manage money to stop the feast and famine and all of this. I mean, that I wasn't confident in that, but anything that I feel not confident in, I intentionally work towards trying to make it my strength. I think that success comes from being willing to not hide from the things that you lack confidence in, but to confront them and to befriend them, and to realise that it is just the practice and the repetition and the willingness to get on the other side of them, that if you have that, you will eventually find your confidence in it.
And did you have, so you mentioned that you grew up in a household with your, you know, all females, mum and sister.
Sure.
Have you had any particular standout female role models that really demonstrated to you what a confident woman looks like? Somebody who you inspired you, who maybe you modeled yourself on? Is there anybody that stands out for you?
That's a good question. My mum definitely is a very strong woman. She brought my sister and I up. We had everything we always wanted when we were younger. We had lots of love, and I really don't know how she did it as a single parent. It was really extraordinary. I have understood the importance of modelling other women and the importance of being a woman that others can model as well. And so definitely in terms of a lot of writers, a lot of authors, because I've written books myself, a lot of coaches I really admire as well, a lot of female entrepreneurs I really admire. So I think there's definitely a little bit of these people who've gotten in and influenced me a little bit, but definitely the first woman I saw really reach for an extraordinary amount of strength in difficult circumstances was my mum.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so would you classify yourself as extrovert? I
would say I'm an introverted extrovert.
Okay.
I need a lot of alone time.
Okay.
I need to get wild, go outside, like in wilderness I need to walk around a lot by myself. I need a lot of time like that, but I get that time so that I have it to give in my more extroverted tasks. So I would say I'm a very deep mix of both.
Okay.
Introvert
and
and extrovert. Yeah, an ambivert, exactly.
Okay. And what do you do, you know, how good are you on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of treating yourself kindly? Like, and what does that look like when you do?
So if one's been not kindly at all, I would say I'm about a 7.
Okay.
A 7 to an 8.
Yeah.
I feel that being quite tough on myself is an intrinsic part of my nature, and again it's that curiosity of how can I do better, how can this be more, how can I push this a bit further. But also at the same time, I have accomplished extraordinary things. You know, I wrote a best-selling book with Hay House. I travelled the world as a speaker. I've had a business since I was 16, and I did not get there on self-loathing or self-hatred. I got there on always having my own back. I always, even when things have been rough or there's surface, you know, there's always surface tension or perturbations, surface waves or whatever, there's always been a constant feeling that I have underneath, that I have my own back, that I've got this. I'm enthusiastic about my life and myself and what my gifts are and making the most of them. And I carry a little card around in my wallet that says, what you are is God's gift to you, but what you make of yourself is your gift to God.
Oh, wow.
And I've always, since I've been given that card, it really clearly states what I believe, and so I really do want to make the most of myself and my life and the pauses in between, and looking after myself and caring for myself and speaking about myself kindly and having a good inner narrative. All of these things are giving me the energy to be able to make the most of my life. So some things that I really enjoy is exercise. I really love gymming, love spending time with my fiance. I love just hanging out and chilling on the couch. I really love walking around and being in nature. And I do treat myself and buy myself nice expensive shoes and nice gear.
Awesome.
Usually after a big milestone, a successful event, or I've written a book or something like that, I'll treat myself to something pretty blingy.
That's
like this
awesome.
jacket, for example, which I got last time I was in Cape Town.
Nice. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
And what something sparked there a memory of today's talk. I mean, there were just so many nuggets, and I was taking profuse notes that I'll be going back and typing up. But one that stands out as you were talking was how elevating yourself puts you in a position to be able to then turn around and help somebody else.
Yes.
That you can't. What was the phrase that you used about? It was related to money, and that you can't make yourself poor enough to help the poor.
Yes, yeah. You can't make yourself poor enough to help the poor, and all I mean by that is a lot of very conscientious and caring women get into the sort of industries that we're in, coaching and transformation, and a lot of the time they also have a very social core of wanting to sort of help or give back to their community. And somewhere along the line there becomes this confusion that in order to help the people they want to help, that they have to have the cheapest possible product or service, so that there's a low bar for entry. But often that's ineffective, because you can't, if you don't have the means because you haven't created it in your business, then you can't actually enact the radical transformation that you want to. So what I suggest is actually the opposite, that you do the mindset work, the wealth consciousness work, to understand the value of what you're offering, to price it appropriately, and to offer it to those who actually can afford it and do want it, and then create some sort of sustainable aspect of your business that's going to allow you to give back in the more charitable or socially focused aspects of your business, rather than trying to create a business out of an area that's trying to go from a difficult situation to being okay. You should make your money in a situation where the going's good, so that you then have the good means relatively easily, so that you have the energy, you have the means to be able to reach back and help those that need the help at this time.
And that you can do it from a place of strength, not a place from your own suffering.
Yes, and a place of plenty, so that your own needs are met before you try to meet the needs of others, because otherwise you run out.
Yeah,
You run out.
And I think that is a common thread that we see in so many women, and I include myself there as well. I've had that mindset, and it's only, been a fairly recent, I'd say in the last 18 months or so, it was like, oh, wait, hang on, I need to work on me so that I am empowered to help others. You can't do it from, being down there. So to kind of draw this to a close, what does confidence mean to you?
To me, confidence means getting back up when you've been knocked down in any way, and being prepared to take whatever lesson or blessing is available in a given situation. Our confidence is buffed and polished by the difficult things that we face, and the stronger we become in that confidence, the easier things are to face the next time. But sometimes the blessing or the lesson you take from a given circumstance is different to what you thought it was going to be, and it's that lack of integrity between what we expected and then what actually happened that can cause us to drop our confidence, or to think, oh, that frightened or shocked me, or that didn't turn out as expected. But for me, if you can not have expectation and instead look for the actual lesson and blessing that's trying to show itself to you, that's a way for me that I've gone from strength to strength in my confidence.
That's a powerful answer. Thank you. That is awesome.
You're welcome.
And so then if anybody watching this wants to work with you, your programs, buy your book, attend a seminar, do one-on-one transformational coaching with you, where can they find out all the information?
Sure, so you can go to my website, which is laurenrobertson.co.uk. I hang out a lot on Facebook. Facebook's been very key to me building my community and my business. So you can search for Become a Speaker Superstar as a Facebook group, or you can find me Lauren Robertson, author, speaker and coach. I'm very friendly, I'm very open, I love getting emails and messages and loads of interaction. So if you message me, I will get back to you. It will be me personally that gets back to you. So any questions or anything you have, drop me a line and let me know.
Awesome. And obviously you're visiting us here in sunny Cape Town, and you're soon going to be hopping back on that plane to Scotland. Does it matter if somebody from South Africa wants to work with you, or is,
I would love for somebody from South Africa to work with me. I like South Africans so much that I'm going to marry one.
Yay!
So I would be delighted if you're from South Africa or Saudi Arabia or Scotland or anywhere, not just beginning with the letter S, but anywhere. Please do drop me a line, and I'd love to support you with your speaking.
So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can reach out and
usually people come to me and they work with me as a client, and I'm like, oh, I better do an event in your city now.
Fabulous. Okay, so if you want to work with Lauren and you want her to come to your city, reach out to her, and then she might just come and visit.
Exactly.
Awesome. So is there anything else that you would like to share or say to draw this chat to a close?
Only that the world needs different narratives, different stories and different messages. There is room enough for everybody that has a story and that wants to share it. And even if a woman thinks that her story is plain or not important, or she's not sure she has something different or unique to say, there will be somebody in that audience where it's exactly what they needed to hear to fly. So whether it's in your business or in your relationships, in your personal life, always remember that what you have to say is landing differently with how people are hearing it than how it seems when you say it. So speak up. Give your stories breath, give them a voice, and I hope to see you at some point in that process.
Oh, so beautifully, you're so eloquent.
Thank you. I'm a speaking coach.
I know, absolutely. You clearly know what you're talking about, and I know that she knows what she's talking about because I just spent the whole day with her, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. So please do reach out to Lauren, and the world needs you to share your story, and she's the lady to help you do that. So thank you so much again for your time, for all of your energy today. You are such an inspiration, and I'm so glad that our paths crossed, and I'm sure somebody watching this right now is so grateful that her path crossed with you as well.
Thank you, Abigail. The feeling is absolutely mutual. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Awesome. Yay! That's it. So please do go ahead and follow Lauren, and I'll see you in the next episode. Cool.
High five. That's a wrap.
Yay!